In this video, I'm reviewing the Cuisinart 7-cup continuous feed food processor, so let's get started. Inside the box, we have a 350 watt motor base, a continuous feed work bowl attachment, the 7-cup work bowl, and if we pinch the top of the black handle here, it will open up the cover. Inside you'll find the storage hub, which holds both the fine and medium reversible slicing shredding discs, a stem adapter, and the universal blade for chopping and mixing. We have a plastic slinger disc to use with the continuous feed bowl and another stem adapter to use with the reversible slicing shredding discs. The base has two control buttons, an on button and a pulse off button. It is fairly lightweight, and underneath are 4 rubber feet to keep it from sliding over the counter. The 7-cup work bowl has measurements on it, including a maximum liquid fill line, and similarly the continuous feed bowl has an indication for maximum fill. I'll walk you through how to use all of the various attachments, but first I am going to hand wash everything other than the base, which I'll just wipe over with a damp cloth. All the other parts are suitable to wash in the dishwasher on the top rack. To store the attachments, you will need the 7-cup work bowl. Place the storage hub over the shaft. Next, slide the universal blade onto it, and then take the shorter stem adapter and lay that down next to the blade. Now you can slide on one of the slicing shredding discs and then the second one, before finally attaching the work bowl cover and the food pusher. And then you can store all of this on the base. The plastic slinger disc, the taller stem adapter, and the continuous work bowl have no storage, but the idea is to keep all the sharp blades stored out of the way, so you will need to find a place to keep the other attachments. To use the continuous feed attachment, place it onto the base with the black handle facing the front, a little towards the right, and then twist the work bowl clockwise to lock it into place. The handle should now be centered. Next, I'm going to insert the taller stem adapter that should be used with the reversible slicing shredding discs. And then take the plastic slinger disc, and you want this single rib here to be facing upwards. It is also written on the disc here, this side down, just in case you get confused or overwhelmed, because I'll admit I did get it wrong the first couple of times. I thought the booklet was referring to this ribbed design and I put this facing up, but that's okay, nothing was lost. It does get a little overwhelming having so many parts. So when you place it over the stem adapter, it should sit nice and flush at the bottom of the work bowl and the stem adapter. Next, I'm going to choose the fine slicing shredding disc. The side you want to use should face upwards. It's also marked on the disc which side is facing up, and you can also feel the raised edges. I want to use the shredding side, and I'm going to slide it over the stem adapter with the shredding facing upwards. Now place the work bowl cover on top. I'm going to just turn it around so you guys can see properly. You want to slide this part here on the lid over the latch on the back of the work bowl, like so. Then push down on the front black handle until it clicks in to lock it into place. Make sure to place a bowl or container underneath the feed chute to catch your food. I'm going to start with carrots, making sure to trim the end so it doesn't tilt sideways. Then press the on button. Use the food pusher once you can no longer hold onto the food with your fingers, and then press the off button when done. And that was amazing and super fast, and take a look at these finely shredded carrots. They came out beautiful. Let's open the lid, and there will always be some excess food bits on top. That is normal, and we do have some carrots stuck to the sides of the work bowl. So just note that foods with high water content are likely to stick to the walls and shoot during processing, but overall it did a great job. Sticking with the same fine disc, I am going to flip it over to have the slicing side facing up to slice some onions. I can't fit in a whole round onion, so I have to cut it into half and carefully place it in so it doesn't topple over. Then hold it into place with the food pusher before pressing the on button. And again, it sliced the onion really well. You can see some nice even slicing. And then if we open the work bowl, it will be the similar result to the carrots, with a small leftover piece on top of the blade and some excess onion in the work bowl. Using the same fine slicing disc, I also tested out a potato to see if it can handle it, and I am very impressed. Take a look at how thinly sliced these potatoes are cut. Sticking with potatoes, I swapped out the fine slicing disc for the medium slicing disc, but I forgot to trim the end of the potato before adding it into the feed chute, so it did end up tilting a little. Most of the potato did slice evenly, and if I compare it to the fine sliced potato, you can see the difference in the thickness. When I open the lid, you can see a slightly thicker piece left behind on the blade because, like I said, it did tilt sideways and the food pusher couldn't keep it in place for it to slice properly. Using the same medium slicing disc, I tried it on something a little softer like tomatoes. My tomatoes are not super soft. You want them a little firm, otherwise they will turn to mush. Again, I can't fit them in whole, so I did cut them in half. And again, the food processor had no issue slicing through it. Flipping it over from medium slicing to medium shredding, now came the cheese test. For me, cheese shredding is the ultimate test thanks to the amount of cheese I use in my cooking, from pizzas to pastas to grilled cheeses, so I'm always looking for fast, effective ways to shred cheese. Starting with mozzarella cheese, unfortunately I didn't latch the lid on correctly, so the cheese kept bouncing off the lid. Once I fixed the lid, shredding the cheese was not a problem at all. And here are the results. Beautiful even shreds once the lid was attached correctly. These little larger pieces are from the first block that I tried to shred, and taking a look at the lid, this is where I always find cheese tends to get trapped, but you can see here there is absolutely no cheese stuck under the lid. Using the same medium shredding disc, I shredded some cheddar cheese. Again, really nice. Take a look at these even shreds, no clumps at all. And I took this straight out of the fridge. It is best to use it when it is completely chilled. Some people do put it in the freezer. I don't have the patience or the time for that, but I do like how it has shredded the cheddar cheese. Looking under the lid, there is a bit of cheese stuck under it, but it's not all the way around. And to be honest, I was expecting cheddar cheese to stick simply because it does have a little bit more moisture to it, and cheddar cheese almost always does stick to the lid. I also took my testing a little further and I tried shredding some potato using the medium shredding disc. I did seem to get some resistance from the potato because it didn't seem too happy with how I placed it in the feed chute. But it kind of repositioned itself and then it happily went through the shredder. So this is great if you want to make some shredded hash browns. Now using the 7-cup work bowl to do some chopping, place the short stem adapter in and slide the universal blade over it. And starting with tomatoes, the manual states to cut food into 1/2 to 1 inch pieces, so you will need to do a little bit of prep work before you can even begin chopping. This kind of defeats the purpose of using the food processor, since there won't really be much left to chop if I've already cut them into 1/2 inch pieces. So I started with some tomatoes and switched on the food processor, but the results were not the best. The tomatoes were very uneven and looked very much like a mess. For the onions, I decided to use the pulse button to try and get some even chops. While it was better than the tomatoes, there were still some large uneven pieces, therefore suggesting that chopping vegetables is not the food processor's best performer. But it does work great if you want to chop a variety of nuts. I added a mix of cashews, almonds, walnuts, and even a few pistachios before pressing the pulse button a few times. Because the nuts were all different shapes and sizes, it was fair to say they all had uneven chops. But once I let the food processor chop them to a fine texture, the result was so much better. We use these finely chopped nuts together with the shredded carrots to make a delicious carrot cake in my gourmet air fryer, and I'll leave a link to the video review of that air fryer if you would like to watch it. Using the same work bowl and blade, my final test was to make dough. I started adding 1 cup of all-purpose flour to the work bowl and intended to use the markings on the work bowl as my measurement guide, but as I did this I realized the flour was falling onto the blades and wasn't measuring correctly. I then decided to remove the blade and measure the flour before inserting the blade, only to realize that the flour will get trapped under the blade and may not mix very well. I finally decided to remove all the flour from the work bowl and measure it accurately using another measuring cup. First measuring 1 cup of all-purpose flour, then measuring 1 cup of chapati flour. Once I transferred the flour to the work bowl, I added a teaspoon of salt and about 1 tablespoon of ghee and carefully mixed everything together before securing the lid on. Then, using my same measuring jug, I added 1 cup of warm water to start with, turning the machine on and slowly pouring my water into the feed chute. I did this nice and slow and watched it as it formed into a dough. It's a good idea to open part way to feel the dough and break it up to help it mix better. As the dough forms, the machine does vibrate quite a bit. And although it does have rubber suction feet, it still makes me nervous. And I just felt compelled to hold it so it doesn't topple over. Once I was happy with my dough consistency, I also checked under the blade and you can see there was only a tiny bit of dough trapped. Overall, it did pretty well as long as you remember to follow the instructions and not add more than 2 cups of flour. The food processor should have no problems making dough. And if you're wondering what I made with this dough, we made some amazing puris. After testing the Cuisinart 7-cup food processor, here's my final take. It handles slicing and shredding really well. Whether it's veggies, cheese or potatoes, the results are fast and consistent. The continuous feed feature is a real time saver. Chopping, however, was hit or miss, especially with softer foods like tomatoes. Plus, having to pre-chop ingredients kind of defeats the purpose. That said, the chopping blade works well for nuts, breadcrumbs and dough, as long as you follow the instructions and don't add more than 2 cups of flour to it. Like most food processors I've tested, this one does vibrate when making dough, since the dough hits the sides of the bowl. Given how lightweight this model is, I do wonder about the durability and stability of it in the long run. I'm also not a fan of the lid design. Instead of a twist and lock mechanism, it hooks over a latch at the back and clicks in at the front, and it doesn't feel as secure all the way around. At times, harder foods push against the lid and it felt like it might pop off. If you're looking for a compact, lightweight food processor that excels at slicing, shredding and basic food prep, this one is worth considering. The continuous feed attachment is great as it helps handle larger quantities despite its small size. You do get a lot of things included with this food processor, all at a great value. Alright guys, I hope you found the video useful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Please don't forget to give this video a like, and if you are new to my channel, please do consider subscribing, and I hope to catch you in my next video.